Hey, hello everybody. I'm Ginny Carter, the author maker, and I just want to start by saying thanks very much to Laura Morrison of Game Changer Consultancy for hosting this webinar. It was her suggestion actually to do it. It was her idea. I think it was a really nice one, so thank you. And it really just came about when we were in a Facebook group talking about Scrivener, and various people were saying how they had got it and struggled to get started with it and given up and were using Word because that's what they knew, and I thought it was just such a shame because it's a brilliant Scrivener, and anyway then Laura suggested that I could do a quick tutorial for people on how to get started with it, so that's what this is. So I'm just going to do a couple of slides to just introduce it and introduce me, and then I'm going to dive into Scrivener. So my slide will go, that's good. So Scrivener is basically just a bit of downloadable software that you can either use on a PC or a Mac. I'm going to show it on a PC because that's what I've got, but the Mac isn't a huge amount different. You can get it from literatureandlatte.com/Scrivener. I think it's about $40 last time I looked. It's really very cost effective, and you can get a free trial with it as well. So there's not a lot to lose by trying it out. And really what it does for you is it really helps you to write large and complex documents. So that could be a book, I mean that's the obvious example, or it could be maybe an e-course, it could be a smaller e-book. I know some people use it to organise their blog posts. There are lots of different ways that you can use it, and the way it works is it allows you to collect everything in one place that you're going to need to write whatever it is you're writing. And it's really basically a project management tool for writing, so it just makes it a lot more streamlined. And if you want more help on it, the actual Scrivener software comes with a tutorial, which I'm going to be using for demo purposes today. The only thing about that is it is rather like wading through treacle to go through that, and I did a lot of that at the beginning because I'm that kind of thorough kind of person, I like to know everything. But I did actually find myself almost wanting to kind of, throw myself out of my office window by the time I got halfway through it. So the idea of this session is to avoid you having to do that really. And then there's a little picture there of my book, Scrivener for Dummies, which is a good little reference guide as well. There are other Scrivener books around. And then there's also learnscrivenerfast.com, which is a paid-for program where if you want to get into it in more detail and learn more advanced stuff, then that's a good source as well. Or you could even just get on the guy's email list, is not a bad idea, and just visit his site and sign up, because that, from everything I've heard, that's a good course. But then just a little bit about me. I'm a business book ghostwriter and book writing coach, and as you can imagine, I do a lot of writing, and I help coaches, speakers and experts get seen, heard and hired with their own book. So as you know, having a book is a brilliant tool for your business. It's a marketing tool effectively, and I've been using Scrivener for the past few months, and this tutorial is really just what I know. I don't profess to be any kind of guru at all on Scrivener. I'm sure there are some people out there who could teach me a lot about it, but and I just wanted to say that I'm not selling anything on here. I'm not an affiliate or in any way connected with Scrivener. This is just me trying to help out really, and help people get started with it. So I will dive in, and you should now be able to see Scrivener up in front of you there. And if you've got Scrivener installed already, you can always follow along with some of this as you go through. So let me just collapse things to make it a little bit easier, and I'm going to just delete a couple of things as well actually. Right. Okay, so I'm going to start off by just going through a bit of basics really. This is the way that Scrivener looks. I've got it to expand my whole screen just because I thought it would be easier for you to look at, but you can have it smaller if you like. You've got the main pane in the middle here, and that's where you do all your writing, and that's where you import things, that's where you see them, that's where you see your material. Binder on the left, which has got 3 lots of folders in it. For a non-fiction book, that'll be your draft, your research, and then your trash. And you can actually change the name of these just by, if I expand it and double click, that's right, you can see by double clicking on it I can call that whatever I like, so it's very flexible. Then we've got a toolbar along the top, which allows us to do certain things, and I'll go into that in a bit. And then we've got a format bar, which is very similar to what you'd have in Word, various different things there that look, I'm sure, pretty familiar to you. And then there's also an inspector here, which I will close. It's open at the minute, and if I click on that, I can close it. I'll go through the inspector a bit later, but that's an area where you can add information about whatever document is showing up in your main viewer in the middle there. So if you, just to start off at the beginning of the process, if you were wanting to open a new project up, you go basically File, New Project, and you'll get various different templates here, and the one you'd most likely use, I imagine, is the non-fiction one if you're a business writer, and that will basically pre-populate your folders that appear in your binder on the left-hand side, because it will be guessing what kind of folders you want. I'm not going to start a new project now, but it's very flexible. I mean, if you use that to start off with, you can still change things as you go along. You're not restricted in any way, but I'd recommend that that's the way you begin. Just a couple of little safety features to mention as well about Scrivener, which is really handy. It auto-saves every 2 seconds, which you know, is really nice, and it also backs up when it closes. I mean, I have other backups on my PC. You know, I've got a cloud backup and I've got external hard drive. I'm just one of those kind of people that doesn't like to leave things to chance. So I'd recommend you have something else as well. But again, it is a nice feature of it that it does that backup. And then even the trash is safe, because when you put things in the trash, as you see, there's various things still in there, so it will keep things in there for you. So if you want to fish them out again, you can do. And then if I was to do right-click, trash, and then empty trash, it comes up with this warning message saying, do I want to delete everything permanently? And I can say yes, and then it's emptied. So you can't really lose anything by mistake with Scrivener, which is kind of quite comforting. So just to sort of go through the binder, here you've got, and I'll expand that, you've got your draft. So this is the Scrivener tutorial that I mentioned. This is a document that comes with Scrivener when you install it. And if you want to create a new document, there's various ways of doing that. You can click on that plus button there and add an item. It will just put it at the end, and then you can call it whatever you like. If you want to move it around, you can use these arrow keys here. So I decide I want to move that up here, or if I want to make it into a more important document or a folder, I can move it to the left, or I can right-click and move it that way as well. And I talked about double-clicking to change the name, so you can change the name whenever you like. And then in the research area here, I'll just expand that, they've got some example research documents they show you. There's all sorts of different things you can put in here. You can put an image, you can put Word documents, PDFs, links, and it's just a really nice way of making sure that everything in your book or your project is all in one place. I mean, you can even put things in the research that aren't to do with creating your book. They might be like your marketing plan for your book, or some reviews that you've got, or feedback you get from people. So, you know, it's completely up to you, whatever you want to put in there. And I just want to talk through at this point about how you bring things into Scrivener, because if you want to import something into your research area, how do you do it? Well, if I click on the research top folder there, and then go File, Import, I can either select a file from my desktop, or I can select a web page. I can put in a link, and I can put a link address in there and a title, and then get a link into, into Scrivener, then my research area. And if I want to import a manuscript, what do I do then? Because you may have a book that you've partially written. So it might be you might have written 3 chapters of a book, and you think, no, it's just going to be too much hassle to start doing this in Scrivener now. I'm just going to carry on the way I am. But in fact, actually, it's really easy to get it into Scrivener, and then you can just carry on from where you left off. So if I click within the actual manuscript area here, and I go File, Import, and I'm just going to import a test document there, and click on OK, and there you go. It's now brought that into Scrivener for me, and rename it if I wanted to. Now you might think, well, okay, this is quite a short document. What if I had several chapters of a book I'd imported? You know, how would I split it up? Because you want it to follow the same sort of outline as you've already created here in your chapters. So the way to do it is to just click where you want the split with your cursor there, and then choose Documents, Split at Selection. And then it's now created another one for me there, which I can rename. I can create the first one, you can see that it ends where I put the cursor, and then this one starts where that one left off. So you can, it's a bit of a job to do that at the beginning, but by the time you've gone through all of that process, you've then got everything into Scrivener in the way you want, and you can obviously rearrange these pages in whatever way you like once you've got everything imported. So that's a really useful thing to know. And then just to complete the binder, there's also a bit here called Collections. So if I click on that, you can show it by clicking that folder icon, and if I click it again, it closes it. I'll open it up. And this is really for either showing search results that you've done, or other, when you want to gather together various documents that you've created and put them all into one place. So I'll show you how the search results works. It's really easy. I mean, this is quite useful. For instance, like one of my clients had, he changed the name of his program to something else, and so this was quite near the end of the process of writing his book. So I wanted to see all the places that I put it. So the search function was very useful for that. Or another instance was another client of mine had some stories he wanted to add in quite near the end of the process of writing his book, and so I just wanted to check that I hadn't already used any of those stories already. And at the end of it, you've written a lot, it's hard to remember all these things. So I put in a keyword and it showed me the place where the story already was, and that that saved me hours of having to scroll through it all. And you may well find the same thing yourself. You may think, oh, did I mention X, Y, or Z? Did I talk about that in the book? Or did I imagine I wrote it? Or did I actually put it in? And through a few keywords, you may well find that you've already done it. So just suppose I wanted to put the search word in Scrivener now. I mean, obviously, in a tutorial about Scrivener, you'd expect that to come up a lot. And you can see that Scrivener's now showing me everything in highlighted yellow, so I can now see wherever I've put that. And I'll just close that down now. But another nice way of using the collections is to think, right, well, there may be certain documents that I might want to do more research on. I know that there's that one there, and by using Control, I can select non-adjacent documents. I know on these 3 documents here, I need to do some more research on those, and I want to put them somewhere together so that I don't forget that. So what I can do there is click on the plus button for add a collection. I can put more research needed, and there you go. I've got my 3 documents there that need more research on them. And if I click back to the binder, they're still there in there, not been lost. They're just in there as well. And if I wanted to add another one in, and I just suddenly remembered, oh, that one needs more research as well, I can drag it up, and there's now 4 in there. So again, I think that's a really nice, useful thing to be able to do. And you can kind of see now how you're able to see your whole manuscript in a way that you can't do in Word. You've got everything out there listed on the binder on the left-hand side, and you can do all of these clever things with it that you just couldn't really do in any other way. And if I wanted to lose that collection, I could just press the minus button there, and it says, do I want to delete it? I say yes, and there you go, it's all deleted, and I can close my collections if I want, which I tend to do because I think it just looks a bit tidier. And I'm back to where I was. So that's mainly the main functions of the binder there, but I also just wanted to touch on the toolbar and the format bar as well, because they've got some really useful icons here that are just shortcuts really, and I'll be going through what some of those mean in a bit. But if you want to personalize it, you go into Tools and Customize Toolbars, and the main toolbar, that's that one at the top. If you click that option there, you can see all of the different options here, and you just click on these arrow keys to decide whether or not you want them readily available to you. And then again for the format toolbar as well. For the main toolbar, I'd recommend having the icon in there. That's very useful, and your project statistics and project targets I like as well, plus the collections. But you can decide whatever you want. It's completely up to you. And then the format toolbar is very similar. And if you find yourself constantly using something that you're always having to access on the main menu along the top, you think, well, I could add that. I could add a shortcut in my toolbar. So that's how you do that, and you just click on Apply. So that's kind of like the basics, really. But you know, and to be honest, if that's all you ever knew about Scrivener, that would get you started in a really good way. I mean, that's all I kind of got my head around right at the beginning. You know, I wouldn't sort of worry about having to learn absolutely everything about it to get started. You can already see how you can do a lot more than you could have done, you know, with Word. But anyway, I'm going to show you a few other things as well, because I think that some of these things you'll find really useful, and they're things that I found very helpful as well for me. When you're in your main section here, your main pane, there are different ways. There are 3 different ways of viewing your document. One of them is just this one here, which is the default one, which is the single document view. So I'm in a document, if I see notes, I can see that document. Simple as that. However, if I'm in a section which is got other sections included within it, so it's a folder of documents, you can see that this changes to what's called the Scrivenings view. And what that does is it shows you all of your documents, but with this dotted line in between to show that one's finished and the other one's begun. And it's a nice way of you being able to see your manuscript all in one go. So if you want to see how one chapter ends and another one begins, and see the flow of your thinking and the flow of your thoughts, that's the best way to, when you're reading, they're not necessarily going to be clicking. I mean, they're not necessarily going to end at one chapter and then start the next one on another day. You know, they might well be reading it all the way through in one go. So you want to be able to replicate that experience as much as you can. And you can also here select different non-adjacent documents. So again, using Control, I can select, say, 3 non-adjacent documents in the Scrivenings view, and I can see them now all together in one go. And you know, you might find this useful for things like if you're weaving a story through your book and you want to see how the progression of your story is working throughout the chapters it's in, which may not be next to each other, or maybe you've got a case study that you're talking about every now and then and you just want to make sure you haven't repeated bits, or you want to be able to see the flow of how it's all working. And if you're developing an e-course, you know, you might have certain themes that you're talking about which you know are in different areas of your course, and you want to just see how they all work once they're one after the other. So you know, there's lots of different ways that you can use that view. And then going back to Part 1 Basics, there's another view here called the corkboard view, which a lot of people find really useful. I mean, for me personally, I'm not a big visual person actually, so I prefer the list approach, but I'm sure there are lots of you who really, really love this visual approach. And basically all it's doing is it's showing your structure, your outline that's in folders on the left-hand side, but showing them in a visual format. And I can sort them around like this, and you can, if I do that, that's replicated on the left-hand side, so it's fully integrated. I can put a synopsis for each one by double-clicking on it and typing it. I can change the name, and if I do that, it again gets changed on the left-hand side here in the binder. And you can see in step 5 here there are more cards because that's got some sub-documents in there. So if I click on 5 and then the corkboard view, you can see all of those split out there. So this is just a really nice way, I think, for many people of just plotting out what how the structure and the outline of their work is going to look. And then the third view is the outline view, and I like this view actually. It's just very clear. You can have your synopsis in your title of each document. Then the nice thing about this view is that you can also use labels and statuses and other data and metadata that you can put into the inspector, which I'll show you in a bit. So you could have, for instance, word count per page with a column there, or you could have the page target versus the word count, or the date it was completed, or whether it's a final draft or whether it's a first draft. So again, it just gives you that view over your book or your course that you just couldn't do really in any other way. It allows you to hover over it, and really, really helpful. So I'm just going to, and I've mentioned the inspector, so I'm just going to kind of touch on that now, and I'm going to go into the inspector button. So I'm not going to go into detail on the inspector because I found this all a bit scary actually when I first started using Scrivener, and it was one of the bits I found a bit off-putting. I thought, oh no, that's just far too complicated. But having said that, actually there are some really useful elements to it, and I don't know how all of the inspector works. I don't profess to be any expert, but I'll show you the bits that I find useful, and that hopefully you'll find useful as well. So I'm just going to go back to the Scrivenings view in the main pane there. So you can see there are different icons along the bottom of the inspector here, and again, I'm not going to go through them all, but one of the most useful ones is the notes icon there, and it just allows you, as you would imagine, to just make notes. So there's an option here to have project notes, which means that wherever you are in your project, you'll see that note. But if you click here, you can have document notes, and you can just make yourself a note. And then you can go back between project notes and document notes like that. So it doesn't get printed when you print your final draft, or doesn't get saved as part of the document, but it just means that if you want to write something to remind yourself about something you've written or whatever it is, you can put it in there. And then also in this notes area, and in fact actually it's accessible, as you can see, through some of the other areas as well, but I'll access it through the notes, is this general metadata. And I think the word metadata can sound a bit off-putting. It sounds a bit like you're making a website or something, but actually it's really, really simple. You can have assign a label and a status to every single part of your manuscript. So you can, if I click on the drop-down arrow there, you click on Edit, you can decide whatever you want these labels to stand for. So they give you some some standard ones, concept and chapter here. I've added in a first draft, and the way I did that was I just double click, or so you can use the plus button to add one, and then you double click on it to select a colour, or you can double click on the name to, I'm just going to remove that one now, you can double click on the name to change the name. And you can see the status is the same, it's very similar. It doesn't have a colour associated with it, but you can create or change these however you like. And what I find actually is that having the status actually integrated into the label is a really good way of doing it, and I'll show you why. If say I wanted to assign the status of first draft to a page, let's get rid of that. This is a really nice thing to do. You can go into File, into View, use label colour in, and then you've got various places you can use it. So you can put it in your binder, so that will highlight the whole row in your binder. In the icons, which are the little symbols in your binder. Your index cards, that's in your corkboard that I showed you, and then also the rows in your outliner view, which was the view where you see everything in one place. So if I do it for icons, you can see there that now all of the labels that I've associated with a page in my metadata here are now in here on my binder. And what's really nice is that, like, if you wanted to say, right, well, I'll say that purple is first draft, so I can change what that's called in the inspector over here, and pink is second draft, and I can see at a glance then how far I've got with my manuscript. I can see which pages are finished, which are still in development. And then again, if you want to show view, use label colour in, outliner rows, and I was to go in my outliner, I could see them all highlighted there. So for me, that's a little bit OTT actually. I find that a bit off-putting, but it's just entirely up to you how you want to do it. And then I can take it off. I can take it out of the icons, and I can take it out of the outliner rows. And let's get back to the way it was. So where am I up to? Yeah, okay, snapshots. The next bit of the inspector I just wanted to think you find really useful is snapshots. So I've got this camera icon which I've placed in my format bar here, and my toolbar, sorry. And there's making revisions to a document, and you think, right, well, I don't want to kind of lose what I've written, and I guess if you were in Word, you'd probably save as version 2 or something like that, and then you'd end up with lots of different documents, and it all gets a bit messy. Well, in Scrivener, what you do is you can take a snapshot to make sure that you don't lose what you've already written. So all you do is use this camera icon. You get this very satisfying clicky noise, and then you just rename it, so it could be first draft, say. And then when you click on it, you can see, if you're in your snapshots area here, you can see what you've written before. And then just suppose you start to make your changes and you think, oh no, this is terrible, no, I just want to go back to the way it was, I've messed it up. You can click on rollback. It'll give you a warning message and all this kind of thing. You can decide, I'll cancel it for now, but you can decide whether or not you want to go back to the way it was or not. And then that's it, you know, you've just kind of reverted back to the way you were. And I think you can, something like about 5 different snapshots or maybe 7 different snapshots you can have in one go. So you can call one first draft, second draft, third draft, or whatever, and keep track of it that way. And then if you want to get rid of them, you just delete on the top right there, use the little minus sign. So it's I think that's just another safety feature that's really handy. And then in terms of another way that you can view your work and work with it is through footnotes and comments. I mean, I'm sure if you're writing a non-fiction book, you might well want to use footnotes. And if you go into this part of the inspector here, you can see this is where your comments and footnotes are kept. So just suppose I wanted to make a footnote about this bit here. So I would highlight the area that I wanted to relate the footnote to, and then I would go up to my toolbar here and click on footnotes, and then I could just type whatever, type whatever my footnote is, and that's created it. And then in fact that actually creates a link then, so that when I click it, that gets highlighted on the right hand side there in my inspector. But also it might be that I want to make a comment on something that I want to check on later. It might be, and I want to, you know, check a source or a spelling or research something or whatever. So I can highlight what I want to check there, and then click on comments. I can write my comment in there as well. And again, that's a link as well. So when I click on that, it gets highlighted in the inspector. So, and with your footnotes, you can choose how you want them to be collated at the end, whether you want to have them all in one or whether you want to have them at the bottom of the page. And then you can delete them as well if you want to, just on the right hand side up there. So so that's kind of just a, you know, a very useful thing. It's a bit like, I suppose, in Word when you have track changes and you have a little bubble and you can make a comment there. It's just that's Scrivener's way of doing the same thing. So that's kind of it in terms of, you know, how you actually work with it to write stuff. And I think really that is all you need to do to get started. I mean, I don't use anything else other than what I've shown you there. In terms of productivity side of it, I think there are a few little features which I find really useful, and again this all depends on your mentality really and how you like to work. I mean, I do a lot of writing. I'm often writing multiple books at once, and for me keeping track is really important. I mean, I think Scrivener on its own, just simply because it keeps everything all in one place, it makes it a lot more productive in any case, but there are also a few extra things you can do. So for instance, at the bottom you can see there's this word count here. So whatever bit I'm selecting here, that will change depending on what document I'm in. The word count will obviously change along with it, so much like it does in Word. But I can also set myself some targets if I want to. So if I say, well, I want this chapter to be 1,000 words, I click on this little target symbol on the bottom right, and then I can set a target for the document. So say, right, this one's got to be 1,000 words. There we go, it goes 492 out of 1,000, and then it's given me a progress bar there which will get green as it gets nearer to the completed target. So you can also do that for your whole document. I mean, if I put, if I put it in basics there, so if I go back in the right view, there we are. So if I go into basics, and this is for the whole of part 1, I might want to say, right, for my part 1 I want to set a certain target, and I can do the same thing for that. Yeah, so it doesn't matter where you are, what level you're at, you can still set yourself targets. Then what you can do is, once you've done that, you can have a look at your project statistics. So that's this, sorry, this is project targets. So it's another way of looking at project targets. If you click on this icon here, you can set a target for the whole book or for your course or whatever it is. And and then you can also have a session target. So you could say, right, today I'm going to write 2,000 words in one go. I want to put that in there, and then I'll know how far I've got. So you can do it. You can do it either way there. But you can also go into project statistics, which is these bar charts here, and it refreshes very quickly when you do it. And then depending on where you are in the manuscript, it will give you how many words you've written. In the selection you're in, it'll give you your words, but also for the total document. And then in the options bit here, you'll be able to see or choose what documents you want to include. And also, I think it's really nice as well, you can set a certain number of words per page, imagining that your book was printed. And then when you go back into your statistics, it will show me how many actual pages roughly it would be. So it just gives you a kind of a way of visualizing your book and how far you've got with it. There is also another little thing I'll just show you, which is about text statistics. So if I go into project, text statistics, it will give me a word frequency thing, so I can click here. Oh, hang on, I've got to, so I'm not in an actual document. It's not letting me show it, so I'll show you again. Project, text statistics. So in this particular document, there's 599 words, and if I go into word frequency, obviously the word the, you, and to, I'm using those a lot, but if I click on that to reverse it, I can see the more unusual words, and if I scroll back down through it, I can kind of start to see if I'm repeating certain words a lot. You know, so I might have used, in a 600-word document, I've used the words folder 9 times. Well, that's probably all right, but maybe there might be other words here that, you know, I want to find a bit more variety for, import, for example. So it's just a kind of a way of helping you be a bit more, you know, varied with your vocabulary, really. So that's the kind of productivity side of it. And then the final bit that you'll need to know about is how to compile, on how to get your work out of Scrivener and into the format that you need it to be in. It might be you want to send it to somebody for them to review it or help you with it or proofread it, or it might be that you want to get it printed. So what you do is you go into File and then Compile. Actually, before I do that, I'll show you another way, which is File and then Export. And then basically what you can do is save the documents onto your PC or your Mac. They will come out as folders, so whatever folders are in here in your binder, for instance, that will come out as one folder with subdocuments within it. So it's not terribly useful if you want to email it to somebody, for instance, because it won't be just one document, but you could put it into a Dropbox folder and share it that way. But yeah, the main way to get it out is to go File and Compile. And again, I'm not going to go into huge detail on this because it is a little bit off-putting, but the way I would do it is to make sure you're formatting it as custom, so you can decide yourself how you want it to be, and then compile for. You can see there are lots of different options here. So you can either have a preview, you can compile it into a PDF, into a Word document, or even into a .mobi or .epub file for your ebook format. So you can actually create your own ebook file direct from Scrivener literally in a couple of seconds, which is amazing. You want to make sure that you use the Kindle Previewer app to double check it actually does work properly in the way that you want it to. It's not, you know, it's not foolproof, but you'll get 90% of the way there with this. So there are lots of different options here, and I won't go through all of them, but safe to say that you can select here what pages you want to be included, so you don't have to include every page that you've written. You can decide what goes in and what goes out. I would normally select as is, so that it makes it work in the way that you visually can see it. The end result will be what you see in front of you. You can add a page break before certain chapters and not before others if you like. And then you can do things like add separators, you can format it, you can decide what you're going to do with your footnotes and your comments, and then you can have your page settings with, you know, what you want your header to be and that kind of thing. And once you've done all of that, you can actually save it as a preset format if you want to, or load one that you've previously set. And then I would advise just compiling it for preview to just first of all, so that you can just see what it's going to look like. So if I click on compile, it shows me didn't think it was going to turn out like that before you've actually saved it, if you would head and save whatever form. And then your book is out of Scrivener. So and that's kind of it, really. I mean, that's really what you need. It's just brilliant, and the more you use it, I mean, I honestly don't know how I would do without it now. Actually, it's really, you know, the more I use it, the more I find it's just completely indispensable for me. But I'll just end off just by saying just a couple of things, really. Just one more slide. Just want to really say thanks to Laura again, who's hosted this for us. That's absolutely brilliant. And there's a couple of freebies for you if you're interested. I said I wasn't selling anything, and I genuinely am not. I tend to find that when people start off with writing their business book, and actually, to be honest, this could go for an e-course as well, or just an e-book or anything. They often have lots of ideas but don't really know which one to choose. So I've done a really handy flowchart for you, which you can get at marketing21.co.uk idea/idea, and that's just completely free. If you want to go ahead and have a look at that, then be my guest. And then I also offer a free half-hour strategy session to people who are serious about writing a book but are struggling with some aspect of it. It might be you don't know how to get started. It might be you've got halfway through and can't get any further. It could be lots of different things. So if you go to my site, which is marketing21.co.uk/strategy-session, that's a link on the menu there, so you'll see that there. Then you can apply for a session, and if we're the right fit and I think I can help you, then you know that I'll send you an email and we can set a time up to talk. If on the other hand you'd like to say hello on Twitter, I'm _Ginny Carter. I love to say hello there, so do come and follow me and say hi, tell me what you thought, and then that's my email address, ginny@marketing21.co.uk, if you want to just ask any questions, or you know you've got anything you're not sure about, you just wanted to talk about something. And so that's kind of it then, Laura. So I hope that kind of worked for you, and you feel a bit kind of clearer on things now.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I will just have a quick check to see if we've got any questions come from the group. There, we've got a question from Kate Trafford, which is, if you compile to Word to share and get it edited or get feedback, how do you work with that back in Scrivener?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, what I would do is, once you've got say you've got a track changes document back again, I would import it into your research area here. And then before you then go and make any other changes, take a snapshot of your original work like I explained, and then what you can do is you can, and I didn't explain this before actually thinking about it, but you can split your page in this way. Okay, so I'm going to go into Scrivening's view. Hang on a minute, let's get to a different view of it. That's right. So here, like for instance, I've got the corkboard at the bottom and the document at the top, but I could, for instance, if I was on here, forgive me because this isn't my area of expertise actually, yes, the bit that's highlighted blue, you can see now is at corkboard, but I'm going to make it so that it's a document view. So what you can do is work across two, so you can then manually say this one at the bottom was the track changes document, and the one at the top was my original manuscript. I can go through and make the changes as and when I like them, or I could split it that way if I wanted to, just by using these buttons at the top. So there's no need to kind of abandon Scrivener once you've got your feedback. I think it's a mistake. I think the real benefit you get out of Scrivener is if you keep the whole thing in there. And that's just a really nice way of doing it. You could, of course, if you would say, you could work it, if you had your track changes in Word, you could accept the changes or work in Word and then simply import it and replace the document that you'd created in Scrivener and using the import function. So that's another way of doing it. It kind of depends on whether or not you like to track everything you're doing in there. But personally, I would track it by taking a snapshot and then make it as a manual change myself. But it depends on how you want to work. Does that kind of help you, Kate? I hope that's explained it.
Is that brilliant? Thanks, Kate. Yeah, Kate's confirmed that that's answered. Lovely.
Oh, good.
And I think that's it. There's no more questions that have come through. So we'll be sending the details out. You will be able to find Ginny's website from that as well. Obviously, I'm guessing most of you probably saw this promoted via either Facebook or Twitter as well, so you know where to connect with us if there's anything further we can help you with. So thank you very much, Ginny, for a very, very comprehensive call this morning, which will
thank you.
Get everybody up and flying and starting their books with gusto.
Well, thank you, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about what you're writing. So, yeah, that would be great. Just come and tell me.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Laura.
Bye.